Welcome to Advanced TV Herstory. I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams. This is the place where we connect the dots of TV and feminism to American culture and politics. Welcome, TV Herstoryans. We've got some fun today. So I'm going to ask you a question. Do you remember that girl back in the 60s? Maybe your mother does. Maybe your grandmother does. Maybe your grandfather does. Marlo Thomas. Sports Night from 1998. Wow, what a short-lived great series by Aaron Sorkin. Or Cagney and Lacey in its heyday from those mid-80s, particularly some of those episodes where Chris Cagney, played by Sharon Glass, just absolutely lit up the screen and took it to this guy named Captain Jack Hennessy. Those were really great TV series, really great episodes. What do they have in common? Well, here's the deal. Those series waded into an issue that was becoming much more real in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Quid pro quo sexual harassment grew out of an understanding of some of the ramifications of the Civil Rights Act. And in the 1970s, a whole bunch of legal scholars, including a woman named Catherine McKinnon, defined what sexual harassment was and why it should be illegal, and embarked on a whole legal experience that came about and changed what life in the workplace and in school meant for women and people who were not in power. So I'll explain more. But most importantly, toxic workplace was the other form of quid pro quo sexual harassment. Quid pro quo is essentially one person who has power or authority propositioning the person in lesser authority to do something in exchange for granting what otherwise would come from that person's power. Do you get that? Most importantly, it's usually sex, but it's otherwise a you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours kind of relationship. Definitely done by somebody who is in power with somebody who isn't. A toxic workplace is an environment where behaviors and language and conditions are allowed to persist at the expense of those who are not in power or not in the majority. This was big in the 70s. So I'm telling you all this because this past spring, Howard University's Human and Civil Rights Law Review published a law review article that I co-authored, and I am very proud of the work that my colleague, Mary, who is a retired law professor, she taught hundreds of law students how to write in such a way that people who are not lawyers can understand what they're saying. And so Mary and I embarked on this law review article. She covered the legal process and the history behind quid pro quo and sexual harassment. It's all there in the article. And then together we provided this background in demographics that helped explain how in the United States, women re-entered after World War II the workplace and descended upon higher education. The 60s and 70s were just opening doors right and left for women to finally find opportunity to bring their skills and their talents to the workplace and the classroom. And as you might expect, because those had been areas where in the past men had dominated, they were almost exclusive to men. Men came up with new ways to make sure that women understood where their place was in those environments. And it often included abuse of their power in the form of a quid pro quo or sexual harassment of some sort. If you're looking for the full legal background, then go to the YouTube channel, the Advanced TV Herstory YouTube channel. And there is a 12.5-minute long video that Mary and I did a couple months ago. And Mary gives you all of that legal stuff. And it's pretty digestible even still because she does a great job of explaining it. But do that perhaps as a companion to this episode because I give you more of the TV flavor, which I can't possibly do in 12 minutes. Here's the TV portion of the article, but also kind of why we did what we did, because you're the listeners. You've been with me forever now, and you're probably a little curious about what went on behind the scenes that got us to a law review article, which is not a small feat, just so you know. Why did you pick Howard, Cynthia? Well, first of all, for those who maybe don't track colleges and universities, Howard is a historic Black college and university, an HBCU, and it is a highly regarded law school. But before I answer, a reminder that we chose to limit our research to the years between 1967 and 1999. And that is TV episodes that appear in such a way that you can see them either on streaming or as a DVD. We did not choose to include anything where the only way to see it is a bootleg upload on YouTube, because that could go away. And wow, you know what? Law review staff are sticklers for making sure that what you are saying and what you are footnoting and citing is in for the long haul. So we made sure that what we are presenting can be found in the future. 1967 is critical because that was really the first time we found an episode where there was a quid pro quo situation presented to a leading character. 1999, three things happened, which sort of made us say, wow, the world changed enough, we've got to end our research here. First of all, original high-quality cable programming, that which could be found on regular cable or premium cable, started becoming the norm. And in cable, they have a whole different set of rules that they abide by, rather than what the FCC requires of ABC, NBC, CBS, public television. Secondly, by 1999, online forums and fan forums were really starting to come into vogue. And so if you had just finished watching your favorite TV episode, why would you show up at work the next morning to try to talk to the person who's in the next cube over, who may or may not have watched it, who does or doesn't care, or maybe just wants to work, when you can in fact go online and go with those extreme fans and have the deeper, more rewarding conversation. So by the time all of that online stuff came to be, there's your record. There is your deep record of study and an understanding of every episode and the arcs and the trajectories. And lastly, in 1999 was the premiere of Law & Order SVU, which absolutely changed how the conversations around sexual harassment, sexual assault, agency, and consent. It's been a total game-changing series. And as of my speaking to you right now in 2025, it's still going strong. So our article, it views and recaps these episodes and pulls out a couple that were extraordinary. It lists the rest. Mary offers up legal research on quid pro quo and sexual harassment. And why we picked Howard, you ask? Well, this historic Black college and university has an alumnus named Judge Spotswood Robinson, who actually was not just an alum, but he went back to teach. But he had been a judge for a while, and he was an important judge in at least a couple of the court cases that Mary goes on to explain. Secondly, Howard has another alumna in the form of Debbie Allen. And Debbie Allen, as you may know, is an accomplished actor, director, producer of television as well as film. And she was at the helm of A Different World in 1992 when that became the setting. Hillman College became the setting in which Whitley Gilbert in early 1992 is the first Black woman to be in a quid pro quo situation at work on TV. Up until then, there had been no Black women. So you're saying, Cynthia, why is this important? Mary's research recounted incredible diligence by Black women who were intent on bringing quid pro quo sexual harassment cases to judges and looking for relief. They were looking for somebody to finally weigh in and claim that, yes, they had been harassed and it's against the law. A few scholars know about this. It has been written, but you have to definitely be in the academic silo or perhaps the legal academic silo to really know that this is a thing. So these Black women who were litigating or trying to with lawyers who for the most part were men until there were more women lawyers in the pipeline, which we also explain, they tried their best. And oftentimes they were dismissed by white male judges who chose not to believe that men who were dangling a woman's promotion or a dismissal in exchange for a little hanky-panky, that wasn't improper or illegal. That was just boys being boys, and that's just how the work world is. Suck it up, Buttercup. So Mary explains in the article how, over time, changes to the law and court decisions and judicial opinions finally created the opportunity for some of these cases that had been dismissed to be appealed, and whoa, they resulted in justice prevailing. At a time when the phrase intersectional feminism hadn't really been coined or made popular by activist and feminist writer Kimberly Crenshaw. Intersectional feminism, that's what we're talking about. Because these Black women were in the workplace as Black and as women. I am skimming the details, particularly the lawyer details, because I'm not a lawyer. But message me at tvherstory.com. There's a contact page. Find me at Blue Sky, Cynthia Bemis Abrams, all crammed together. Message me on Instagram at Advanced TV Herstory, or just go old school, Gmail, advancedtvherstory@gmail.com. Send me your email address and I'll send you a PDF. And that PDF includes the appendix, which has the 38 episodes. Because our goal here is partly to just educate on the history of how America came to understand quid pro quo and sexual harassment. Because unless you knew somebody in your family or maybe caught an occasional ladies' magazine, this was not a topic. This was still decades before the Me Too movement. Getting back to Black women. Yes, following World War II and into the 60s and 70s, Black women entered the workforce at rates that were similar to white women, not always necessarily the opportunities that white women had to go to college and everything, but they were in the workforce. And it really didn't matter whether it was a blue collar or a white collar position. A white man, particularly a white man's sexualized stereotype of a Black woman came at her expense. The historic record of crimes against Black women was something that they felt could be perpetuated. They didn't even care. They just did it. They did it because they could do it, and there would be no consequences, or so they thought. Hence, the incredible persistence and the fearlessness of these women plaintiffs, the lawyers who represented them, the gutsy judges who just chose to finally say, here is the law, and we are not going to turn a blind eye any further. Okay, so you're saying, Cynthia, you've lost me here. This is Advanced TV Herstory. Where does the TV part kick in? You promised me TV. Okay, the TV, the 38 episodes in our appendix, are for the most part about white middle-class women. Actually, of those 38 episodes, only one featured a Black woman, and that is From a Different World, Whitley Gilbert. And of those 38, 4 are what we call a reverse quid pro quo, where, in fact, a woman propositioned a man, dangled in front of him a promotion or a something in exchange for sex or intimacy. So of those 4 reverse quid pro quo episodes, 3 are from a 3-part arc in Melrose Place, and 1, amazingly, is from an episode of Perfect Strangers back in the 90s. So again, our data is 1967 to 1999, because even that is a lot of TV watching, and it's a lot of reviewing of episodes and whether or not they fit our criteria. A Different World, which was at that point helmed by a Black woman, Debbie Allen, is actually a series created by Bill Cosby, and we will not go there in this episode. We will not talk about Bill Cosby, but there is some irony going on there. A Different World was a spinoff of The Cosby Show. As you know, when the Huxtable daughter, Denise, was supposed to go off to college, only Denise didn't make it too far in, and Debbie Allen reshifted the focus a little bit, and it was humming along with very good ratings and is still a beloved series and one that tackled a lot of controversial topics. So in 1990, in October, when Professor Anita Hill became a nationally televised phenomena because she was brave enough to testify before the Senate Judiciary Committee, the all-white male Senate Judiciary Committee that was considering the nomination of Clarence Thomas for appointment to the Supreme Court. So, your question, why did you pick Howard? We picked it for all of these reasons. It just seemed like it made sense. And we sent our manuscript, I guess, if that's what you call an article, to the Howard University Human and Civil Rights Law Review staff, and they accepted it 48 hours later. And we worked off and on for the next 6 months, editing it, really reviewing their comments, making sure that it held to the style and the level of what a law review article needs to be. the Howard University Human and Civil Rights Law Review. I cannot say enough what a great opportunity this has been, and I have to thank them. We had a couple other key findings from this whole process, from our study and our research, as if being told unequivocally that depictions of white conflict or plots about white people, that it really is in fact happening to Black people, perhaps even in greater numbers. That's not enough, Cynthia? No, it isn't. No, it isn't. No. Because quid pro quo, like so many other topics that challenge the status quo or gatekeepers of power on TV, only got ushered in on sitcoms. It didn't get tackled as a drama for 12 years following that first episode of That Girl. And who did the ushering? Some incredibly progressive showrunners, including Norman Lear and Susan Harris and Linda Bloodworth Thomason. So those early sitcoms, before we get to the mid-'80s, say, were That Girl, 3 episodes. Laverne and Shirley, honestly, I'm not kidding you. One Day at a Time, Maude, The Golden Girls, and It's a Living. That just gets us to the mid-'80s. There are a few more sitcoms, but honestly, by the time the mid-'80s happened, the dramas had it figured out. And over time, the dramas got deeper and deeper into the weeds of the ethical considerations and the processes that were available to students on a college campus, the processes that were available in a human resources sort of scenario in a workplace. Again, the article's appendix gives the full listing. Why did we do a law review article? Because really this topic is certainly popular and should be interesting for everybody. Well, to some degree, we're connecting the dots, which is what we always do here on Advanced TV Herstory. What we wanted to demonstrate, particularly to the legal community, was that there is a role that TV plays in mirroring social change and sometimes prods social change. And the stories that are out there are going to be there forever. As long as there are streaming or DVDs, these stories can become real examples. Sometimes we can't quite understand a situation until it's shared with us as a story, which is obviously the benefit of storytelling. So we, mostly Mary, delivered this accessible history of quid pro quo and sexual harassment as it is legal history. And that's done in law review articles, but Mary made it digestible even for the non-lawyer. I just added the relatable, the viewable, the logical TV component that brings it to a real situation, one that can be understood. I find it kind of cool to think that we did this and that we can shine a flashlight of sorts that might help future students, whether they're law students or gender studies students or history students, as well as lawyers and judges, because all of these people use law review articles to help them find their way when making a decision, that they might be able to see things differently and actually see them on their TV. Because this was an incredibly important period of civil rights history, and some incredible detail went into writing these episodes. So Mary wrote the legal information and the analysis for non-legal readers, such as yourself, just as she's prepared her students to do. And we're kind of proud of the fact that it can be understood by pretty much anyone. The unexpected detour for me that this has presented is that when I first watched those That Girl episodes, I was so struck that I cranked out a podcast episode. And this was now 8 years ago. When Brett Kavanaugh was up for consideration for Supreme Court, I one-upped my Anita Hill episode, which is entitled I Believe Anita Hill. And I have a second one called I Still Believe Anita Hill. And in those particular episodes, we slow the whole thing down and I explain what Anita Hill's statement said, what it meant, what was seen on TV around the world, and what that impact was. Here we are now, 30-some years following Anita Hill, and we're still only now starting to understand what that meant. There's also the Sports Night episode, which is from the late 90s and offers up a very interesting situation that Natalie found herself in. I really find that the beauty of Sports Night was that it was a TV workplace comedy for the most part, which had ethical undertones, but it was all pre-internet. So it was still a workplace where the focus was on work and the pace was just a little bit slower. I really encourage you to listen to all of those episodes. Sports Night, Now More Relevant Than Ever, was the name of that one. All of this is how the shift that advanced TV history has taken in the last 5 or 6 years is coming to bear fruit. This original research that we have now put into a law review article and hope to put into a book is reaching an entirely new audience. People who didn't think, well, I'm not really a TV watcher. I'm not that interested. All of a sudden, there is reason to be interested. This is why I podcast. You will find episodes in the archive, and I will put the links in the show notes. And do message me for a PDF. I have to thank, most importantly, my writing colleague, Mary, who brought this from an idea to something that the Howard University staff was impressed enough by that they took us and worked with us and published us. The Howard University Human and Civil Rights Law Review staff, thank you to you all. Great ideas, incredible depth, and you pushed us to do our very best. To all the friends who were readers of an early draft, thank you for taking the time to provide your feedback. You know who you are. I can't thank Mary Lou Morose and Nivea Lopez, my editors, enough, because you are working with me as editors of this audio and video project called Advanced TV History, and you are raising the quality with every single episode. I'm grateful that we are a team. And finally, thank you to Jazzer, because in our early years, we found our intro music, and that is Jazzer's Take Me Higher, which is found at Free Music Archive. Did I thank you, listeners? I will again, because you know what? It's your listening and you're recommending, you're following, you're writing a review, you're finding this episode and going back in and listening to those others that I listed for you. Thank you, thank you. Because whether you listen or you watch, I am doing this because we, you and I, share a love of TV. You're the best, and I'm your host, Cynthia Bemis Abrams.